Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. As always, we're here to promote the lean agile mindset, make change agents of ourselves, learn, unlearn, and relearn, and of course, be awesome and wholesome together. And as always, I am your host, Mary Lanier. Now, today we're talking about courage. Now, given how complicated our environments are today, all the complexities that we have to deal with. Courage definitely is an important topic for us. So I'm just going to bring Natalie, my guest for today, Natalie Schrogl. Did I say that right, Natalie?
Yes, absolutely.
You are welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary, Natalie.
Thank you.
Natalie Schrogl is a leadership coach and consultant, and it is just, awesome to have you on the show with me today. We're connected on LinkedIn, and I do read your posts. I mean, they're so deep. You talk a lot about leadership. I remember reading one of your posts when you were talking about how you migrated to Germany, and I thought that was rather interesting. And it was at that point that I decided I must invite her to Sincerely Agile with Mary to come and talk about courage, because that was what I picked up from that post when I read it. Now,
Mhm.
how have you been, Natalie? How have you been faring in the last 18 months? What has it been like for you personally and professionally?
Oh, first of all, Mary, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to share the space with you. And I mean, for those who don't know me, my name is Natalie Schrogl. I come from Kenya originally, and I live in Germany, Munich to be precise. The past 18 months, they have been a roller coaster ride. You know, you've had moments which have been great moments of big wins, moments where you've really lost, and but the most important thing is we have courageously been hanging in there. And the highlight of my past 18 months was actually starting my own company. So it's been an incredible, it's been an incredible journey. I've been
Wow,
here
you
today.
mean during this COVID period, you actually started your own company? That is
Yeah,
amazing. Now, that
I
would be
did.
your consulting firm, right?
Yes, that is the interface leadership. You know, the whole
Interface leadership.
idea is the interface where our strategy meets the human element, you know, because the human element is quite vital, it's quite critical in leadership today. So, knowing how to leverage that correctly
Mm-hmm,
always
mm-hmm.
pays to the sustainability of a lot of companies. So, yeah,
Absolutely. And I really like the fact that you talk about that interface, because I always say also that, I mean, humanity comes into everything that we do. And if we don't bring
absolutely.
that in first, we are not likely to succeed. I mean, I work in the agile space. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that really attracted me when I added agile to my portfolio was the fact that agile was very, very human centered. And that is what we need today. That is what we need today. I can
Absolutely.
see a few people are joining us. Let us see those joining us. We have Ronke join us on LinkedIn already. We have Stella da Silva. Hello, Stella. We have
Hi,
Stella da
Stella.
Silva. We have Victoria. We have Olufunke Adio also joining us on LinkedIn. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining us. Now, let me introduce Natalie to our audience properly. Okay. So, Natalie, I'm just going to bring up your bio. Natalie is a leadership coach and consultant with over 10 years' experience in the banking and finance sector, where she successfully leads diverse teams. She is also an avid writer. Using her diverse experience and cross cultural lens, she founded the Interface Leadership, a leadership consultancy helping professionals become more effective at successfully building people centric cultures. She is also the creator of the Armor of Leadership, a leadership model that provides a practical and actionable framework for leadership transformation and a solid guide to crafting a sustainable response to the changing leadership landscape. Passionate about empowering people through
Mhm.
education, she is in strategic partnership with European Business University of Luxembourg to support its mission of making education affordable, accessible, and equitable to everyone. We are truly honored to have Natalie here on Sincerely Agile with Mary. Natalie, such a pleasure to have you here today. Now, we are talking about courage. Our topic today is on courage. And boy, do we need courage today. Do we need
Absolutely.
courage today? How would you define courage, Natalie?
Oh, well, that you just you made me literally blush listening to you say all that. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. And courage, I mean, courage is a word that has been defined in so many ways, but in a way that resonates with me, a way that I really identify with, is courage is the ability to be afraid and still do something. I mean, it's not about being fearless, it's about taking that conscious decision to take action in spite of the fear. So, we're going to underline conscious decision to take
Hmm,
action in spite of the fear.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you said that, it just reminds me of when I started Sincerely Agile with Mary. When I started, going to 9 months now, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't without fear, like I've always said. It wasn't without fear at all. Because when you want to take major steps like that, all sorts of questions will pop into your head. Why do you want to do that? Would people like it? Would it be
Mm-hmm.
successful? So the fear is there. Your stomach, really, really
Yes.
churns. And for me, when my stomach churns, then it means I'm doing something bigger than myself. And
Uh,
for me, that is a sign that, you know what, you're going to go for it in spite of your stomach churning. Okay. So, like you said, it's not without, the presence of fear, but it is about going ahead in spite of fear. And I have a definition here as well: the quality of mind or spirit that enables a person to face difficulty, danger, or pain without fear. Although this says without fear, but we know that there's always that presence of fear there. So,
mm-hmm.
but without fear in the sense that in spite of that fear, some degree of bravery, if you like. And I have
Mm-hmm.
another quote here which I find quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You need courage to be creative, to see things differently, to go against the crowd, to take a different approach, to stand
Mm-hmm.
alone if you have to choose
Mm-hmm.
activity over inactivity. That is by Jim Rohn. And I think this sort of captures all the things we want to talk about today, Natalie. So,
Absolutely.
you have just defined courage for us, but more importantly, tell us why we should be courageous.
Oh, before I do that, I'm going to have to tell you a story.
Please go ahead. Please go
you know
ahead,
you,
Natalie.
you you talked about those big moments, right? Those big moments that where you discover that your tummy is churning in a way, but you still go ahead and do it anyway. So for me, I do have one really fundamental thing that happened in my life that literally put me on the trajectory that I'm on in today, and that is at the beginning of my career, I think it was around, I'd been a little bit over a year in Germany. And for me, it was always clear that I was going into the banking and finance industry. That was always clear, period. And but for that, of course, you need some form of proficiency in the German language. And so a little bit over a year, that's not quite enough German for you to be um, going or trying to pursue such a kind of a career. So I
Or
remember
feel that you can integrate properly.
absolutely. So what I did was, naturally you reach out to your people, you reach out to your mentors, the people are close to you, those people who fortify you, right? So I reach out to my people and I'm like, you know what? I feel I'm ready. I'm just gonna go for it. And believe you me, every single person that I talked to told me the same thing. This is what they told me: Natalie, you have to be realistic. That was the first thing. The second thing they told me was you really, really need to know your place. And unfortunately, that's not the first and the last time somebody's told me that over my career, right? Over the period of my career. And they said, of course, it's a very competitive industry to get into, considering the fact that you hardly speak the language. It's impossible, right? But then, I had this very clear goal. I wanted to try and I wanted to fail on my own terms. I did not want somebody else to tell me I'm not going to do it and just leave it. I wanted to go fail, get that letter of that rejection letter. I know that I tried it. So I went ahead and applied anyway for an apprenticeship. And luckily, they invited me for the interview. So on that particular day, it was an assessment-based interview that I went to, and we were 15 candidates. So I'm walking into this assessment hall, and if you've worked in a bank. I mean, all of us, we've had those points where we found ourselves in banks before. And banks, they don't save money when it comes to intimidating people, right? They spend all the money to look as intimidating as possible. So I'm walking into this assessment center, and we're 15 candidates. And I was the only Black person, the only non-German, and the only foreigner. So I'm hearing all the other candidates practicing their portfolios, their pitches, and all that, because a part of the assessment was we had to present something. And then I realized I was in trouble. I literally realized I was in trouble. So I walk out of that room, get into the hallway, and start thinking, bloody, I either need to go get myself off the equation or I need a new strategy, right? So I realized that I didn't have enough language. I didn't have enough German to be able to present a portfolio, and I needed to find something else to do. So when my turn came, I walked into that room, and Mary, believe it or not, I presented my lip gloss. And at the end of the day, 2 candidates made it, and I was one of them.
Wow.
So you see, and that was such a fundamental point in my life. That was a point in my life where everything was working against me. And it was a time where I really intentionally decided to push forward, to literally just take stock of what was working for me at that point in time. And then I realized 3 key things on that day, which have been so fundamental in my whole life. And the first thing that was so clear to me that day was something I like to call own your currency. So what do I mean by that? This is a phrase I coined to explain a concept that is so relevant today in a world that is so inundated with so many brands. And this concept basically means you and I, regardless of who you are, regardless of the position, where you come from, you are unique. And in every space you inherently occupy, you always have a value that you bring to that space. So it is your responsibility to be able to know what that is and to learn how to articulate it. Why? Because it doesn't really matter how long you work or how many skills or how much you learn, that uniqueness, that one thing that separates you from every single person in this world, plus the skills that come on top of that, plus the knowledge and the experience that comes, they just refine that person. So wherever you are, regardless of the situation, you always have a value. You always have something to bring to the table. And that is your currency. That is what you will always use to trade. So own your currency. Know what that is, own it, and know how to make it work for you. So that was a major key learning. The second major key learning was learn how to articulate the end goal, what you're trying to achieve. When the end goal is so clear, when you know what you want to achieve, when it's so clear, then you are going to focus regardless of what comes, regardless of what challenges come your way. You know why you're fighting for that. I mean, there's a quote by Nietzsche which I really love. He says, he who has a why can endure anyhow.
That is it. I saw that recently too.
Who has
As
a
a why.
why can endure anyhow. So
Anyhow.
make sure that the goal that you're trying to achieve is so clearly defined. And I may not be able to see it as an external person. Mary may not be able to see it, but so long as you know where you're going, you will get there. You will keep that focus. So that was the second thing. And the third thing was you're going to have to jump trains sometimes. Have the courage to jump trains to get to where you need to go. So in today's society, people always think like, oh, what is my family going to think about me if I change trajectory? What are my friends going to think about? What are my peers? I mean, hey, come on, everybody's getting married. Everybody has bought a house already. People have invested. I mean, for us living in diaspora, it's always like, oh, somebody has built homes already back home, right? Don't do that to yourself. Be courageous enough to know sometimes you're going to have to jump trains, but as long as your goal, the end goal, is so clearly defined, you will
Yeah.
get there. You will get there. Have the courage to do
Absolutely.
that. So
Amazing
don't.
story. I really like the fact that you said people said this and they said that, but you rose above that.
Mm,
And you could do that simply because you had focus and you were totally focused on your why. And because you were focused on your why, you could endure anyhow and you could be creative. You could, summon up your courage and be creative. Now we have our audience here. Let me see what they're saying. I'm just going to look at their comments. Um, Olufunke says, hello, Mary and Natalie. Happy to be here. We're happy to have you here,
hi.
Olufunke. Stella, well done for starting your own company, Natalie. Yes, well
Oh,
done to
thank you,
you, Natalie.
Stella.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And we have who else here joining from Kent? Yes, yeah. And we've got Lakshi Sharma. Is that
Hi,
someone from your
Lakshay.
network?
Yes.
Okay,
Hi, Lakshay. How
good.
are you?
And we have Mrs. Salami here. That's my mom.
Hi,
Stella,
Mom.
courage is sometimes subjective based on who needs or uses it to action to get to where they need to be, either professionally or personally. Absolutely, Stella. Absolutely.
100%.
100% on the money. Now, talking about courage, we can look at it from a personal perspective, we can look at it from a professional perspective. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've given us a mix there in terms of, going for your goal in terms of your career, starting this career in the banking sector, very,
Mm-hmm.
very competitive. And, people had said everything to discourage you, but you went ahead anyway. Now, let's look at courage from the point of view of vulnerability from a leadership perspective. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about vulnerability because you're heavily into leadership. Now, there's a whole lot going on in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just give you, let me paint a picture, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a community where everyone wears red. They are either wearing a red shirt or a red dress.
Mm-hmm.
And then Natalie shows up in a yellow dress. Now, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, isn't it? We can actually say, you know what, since everybody is in red, just follow the crowd, you know, follow the crowd. Make it easy on yourself. Just pick up your red dress or red attire and just blend in,
Mm-hmm.
don't go against the grain, don't try to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And in leadership spaces, sometimes when difficult decisions have to be made, it might be difficult to go against the grain. It might be difficult to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that?
Um, I would just, in a world today, the world that we live in today, where
Mhm.
change is a world that is dramatically changing, even while we sit here and have this life, things are changing, right?
Yeah.
And we can't ignore the constant changes in the global and national economies. We can't ignore that. So the factors, external factors, are demanding
Yeah.
that we have to redefine success. We have to redefine leadership. We have to redefine the skills that we need to lead, the skills that we need to lead the workforce of the future. So, as much as there is fear, and when it comes to redefining things or
Yeah.
changing the mindsets that have probably made us successful in the past, letting go of that or retweaking them a little bit, there's always fear. There's always the fear of the unknown. How will we respond to that? How will my team respond to that? How are we going to compete? Will we still keep our competitive advantage or not? So
Yeah.
factors, external factors currently, they are
Yeah.
literally forcing every organization to
To change.
rethink,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
rethink their leadership, to rethink how they uh, how they position themselves on the market. So
Mm.
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, yeah, you don't
You,
have a choice, but you
you
will
don't.
find that sometimes it's not always easy for leadership to shift that mindset. Like you said something just now. They have
Exactly.
been successful with that kind of mindset. They have been successful with that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I know, like you said, that the environment is changing so fast that this behavior or this mindset, if you like, is not likely to take them into the future. So they
Mm-hmm.
have to change, and they have to start, seeing, knowing, believing that, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one person has all the answers today. It's a VUCA world, like we say. So we need
Absolutely.
to be able to show some degree of vulnerability to say, you know what, I don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And you also need to, as you say, you need to be okay not seeing the end. You know, you need to be okay to adapt. You need to be vulnerable enough to adapt, because a lot of, there's one thing you also spoke into was a lot of successful people. They are the hardest to work with when it comes to mindset change, because they know success to be ABC.
Yeah,
They know this is what I've done in the past and this is
yeah,
what has got me here. How dare you tell me to change that? How dare you
exactly.
tell me to change a running system, right? So, and that is the point where people really have to tap into that space of vulnerability, that space where I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Sit in that space and hold it. The ability to hold that space is also a skill that
It
most of us
is. It
need
is.
today.
It is.
Just be in the space, hold it, and have the courage to disrupt the status quo. Have the courage to lean into those conversations that are going to feel uncomfortable, those conversations that are going to make you feel like you are relearning things anew. So have the courage to do
Absolutely.
that as well.
And one of such uncomfortable conversations is diversity and inclusion today. I mean,
Absolutely.
this is a conversation we have been having for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it will take leadership to
Mm-hmm.
change that. And we're not just talking about diversity now, we're talking about inclusion. But
Mm-hmm.
for that to truly happen, leadership needs to drive that.
Yes.
Leadership needs to drive that because it's a culture thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And for the culture to change, leadership needs to drive that.
Yes, and one thing I do believe the most important thing when it comes to DEI initiatives is to look at it as a business objective, because in many organizations it always feels like it's a nice to have. We do have this initiative. Mary's in charge of that. It is something that people want to talk about. Let's after work, and maybe after work sit a few hours and talk about it. It's not going to work. It has to trickle down all the way from that marketing promise, trickle down from that beautiful slide to the front line, to those quarterly reviews. It has to be a part of that. When you're sitting in
Absolutely.
those meetings and deciding what targets are we trying to achieve, we have to talk about what does our generational diversity look like? What does our gender diversity look like? What is our cultural diversity looking like in the
Yeah.
organization? And also looking at these individual groups individually. Because in many cases, I always experience these blanket solutions for everybody. There's this solution which is supposed to take care of everybody, forgetting that these groups are individuals. So when you talk about, for instance, gender equality, right? We're all women, right? But there's a difference between women of color, black women, white women. So you
Yeah.
also have to look at these particular groups individually. Or when it comes to generations, you got to look at that individually and
Yeah.
find solutions that really address each and every single group. You know. So.
And I like how you said it has to be a business objective. You know, it has
Mm-hmm.
to be a business objective. I mean, I facilitated a conversation recently for a
Mm-hmm.
conference where we were talking about diversity in software development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in software development, of course, this is coming from a highly male dominated environment. And
Mm-hmm.
we're also now talking about how can we have more diversity in terms of demographics, gender, race, and all of that in the software development industry. Because
Mm-hmm.
look at it this way, like you said, it has to be a business objective because if you're developing software, you're not just developing software for a particular group of people, you're developing software for everybody.
Absolutely,
So if you're
100%.
developing software for everybody, then and you don't have a diverse workforce, then you're probably
Mm-hmm.
shortchanging yourself because your product is probably not as rich as it could otherwise be. So it,
Absolutely.
it, it really needs to be a business objective.
that is the only way, because everything
Yeah,
else is just softball. It's
yeah.
literally playing softball with a
Mm-hmm.
topic that is so important. And you know what the whole pandemic did?
Yeah.
It it broke it broke borders. You know,
Yes.
today, I mean, for instance, for the with the interface, I do, you know, sometimes I do work with people all over the world, right?
Yeah.
It literally feels like the world got so small. So business today, you know, we what am I trying to say? Technology made it so easy for us to work with people from all over the world. So
All over the
if you're not fluent in DEI, then you're missing out big time.
Exactly, exactly. So
Mhm.
at the boardroom, we really need to have the courage to speak for diversity.
Yes.
We really, really, as leaders, need to have the courage to speak for diversity. Now,
Mhm.
Natalie, tell me, what else have you done where you had this churn in your stomach, but you felt, you know what, I'm doing it anyway?
Seriously, you really want to get into that right now.
Yes.
A lot of things. Good Lord,
Yeah.
a lot of things. A lot of things. Um, I'm sitting here with you. God, people who know me, they know I hate being on video. Literally, I hate being on video. So actually
Okay.
coming here with you today is like, do I really have to do it? But I'm here with you anyway. So this is me being courageous and coming here on a live show with you. Hey.
And you know what? I must tell you, like I said, when I started this show, I was like, Mary, are you sure you want to do this? But it's something I've been wanting to do for a while.
Yeah.
In the space that I belong to, I work as an agilist. I mean, content sharing is just
Mm-hmm.
something we
Mm-hmm.
do. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I want to encourage more people, more diversity. Let me say
Mm-hmm.
it as it is. I want
Mm-hmm.
to encourage more diversity into the agile space, which is
Mm-hmm.
also why I do this show. Create more awareness about
Mm-hmm.
agile, create awareness about the growth mindset, and
Mm-hmm.
just do my little bits for posterity, if you like. Well, yes, if our stomach churns, then it means we're doing something really, really big. Now,
Mm-hmm.
talking about courage, sometimes it means you are probably the first one on the dance floor, or you are probably the first one that
Mm-hmm.
starts some trend. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always easy to be that first person to do something. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Have you been in this situation before?
Yes.
Can you
So
tell us
many
about that?
times. So many times. And as you said, it's not easy. It's not easy being
No,
the first to do things. It's not
no.
easy always standing up and raising your voice. And and
Mhm.
and and that is the very critical point, to know that courage doesn't really mean it always has to be underpinned by adrenaline filled heroic deeds.
Hmm.
It's not about jumping in front of a car, moving car to save somebody. Of course, yeah, that is courageous, yes. But courage is also these very small, simple things that we do every day. What do I mean by that? Having the courage to speak up in a meeting. Probably, potentially, you're going to have a dissenting opinion or idea, but still have the courage to speak up anyway. Have the courage to change trajectory on a process, for instance, yeah,
Hmm.
or have the courage to good Lord, I think I lost my train
Okay.
of thought right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
um
But the courage
Good
to do
Lord.
what other people are not willing to do, the
Exactly.
courage to be criticized. Because this is what I say when we talk about courage, we can stay within. I mean, let me give you the metaphor of a balcony. So
Yeah.
it's easy to be inside the house because when you're inside the house, you're safe. But when you step out into the balcony, then you're
Hmm.
exposed, right? When you
Yes.
step out into the balcony, then you're subject to scrutiny.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's very easy to, for you to want to do something, but to think, you know what, do I really need to be this courageous or am I ready for this scrutiny? I mean, just
Hmm.
like I said earlier, imagine wearing a yellow dress in a community of people where everyone is wearing red. You're
Hmm.
sticking out like a sore thumb. It would
Hmm.
have been so much easier to just wear red and blend in,
Yes.
okay? Because that is the easy thing to do. To just, you know what, this is how they've always done it. Let me just go with the flow.
Hmm.
It has always been done like that. Let me go with the flow. Let me not rock the boat, right?
Yes, you are so right. But
Yeah, let me not rock the boat, and let me just blend in, because that is not going to drain my energy. But when you then stick out like a sore thumb or you go against the grain, it can be stressful, but you must have the courage to stand your ground. And that is what we said earlier, standing alone if you have to.
exactly, and that kind of rounds it off nicely to the
Yeah,
whole point of having the courage to literally bring your whole authentic self to work.
exactly.
To show up in your whole beauty, your whole self, the way you are, because
Yeah.
that is the only way you can actually innovate, right? You got to have the
Hmm.
courage to think differently. You're going to have the courage to bring in new ideas, which at the beginning may sound totally off, or people are going to exactly say the same thing. We've always done things like this. So,
Yeah.
really have the courage to do that, because innovation, by definition, is risk taking, right?
Absolutely. Innovation is all about risk taking. And of course, working as an agilist, we often talk about hypotheses. We are always constantly testing hypotheses because the
Mm-hmm.
environment, like we said, is moving so fast. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the next feature, what the next trend is going to be. We just have to keep testing it. And of course, that is being innovative. And you have to have the courage to trust the
Mm-hmm.
people who are doing the work and to, just
Mm-hmm.
go out there and test stuff. Now, still talking on courage, let's talk about imposter syndrome. Because I like the way you started your story, how you had to go for this job in the banking sector. It's a very competitive sector. You had just moved to Germany, barely 1 year. I mean, 1 year is not enough to learn the German language, I don't think. You have to be a machine, an artificial intelligence machine to learn it in 1 year. Now, you felt, you didn't quite, you hadn't gotten the hang of the language, but you went ahead anyway. There must have been some degree of imposter syndrome there, obviously. Now, this imposter syndrome is something we will always have, as I have come to realize, but we must constantly, have that courage to overcome that, right?
Mm-hmm. So that pretty cool, yeah. Because the thing is, how do you change that mindset, or how do you have the courage to do things differently when the society, the culture, the religion, the environment that has raised you has literally primed you to do things in a certain way? So, one thing I do believe, what really helps is to
Yeah.
be very aware of those micro moments where you can choose courage. You have to be aware of these moments, not to wait for those big adrenaline pump moments, but those little things, not those little things, to be able to choose
Hmm.
to do it, to choose to push through in spite of the fear, to just go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I do believe that another thing that also can help you is master your mindset. The mindset is so powerful. The mind is such a powerful tool. And if you can intentionally, if you're able to catch that negative and replace it with a positive, what do I mean by that? Instead of finding yourself in that hole where you're talking about, oh, what if I fail, or what if I'm not good enough, or what if I don't do this as I'm expected to? You replace it with, after I have done that, after I have been successful, after I have, replace it with a positive, with what you want to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That helps a lot to focus on the result, on the outcome that you want.
Hmm.
And also, another thing that I lean into this heavily, especially when it comes to putting yourself. I mean, we are on LinkedIn. We put content out on LinkedIn, and when you
Yeah.
put content out, there's always going to be somebody who's going to have something to say about it. People got opinions, right?
Yeah.
So,
Be it
and
positive or negative.
yes, people have opinions, and
Yeah.
there's this concept: critics don't matter. I mean, critics, they they don't matter in my life. Like,
Mm.
period. Critics don't count. And this is a concept that actually I got it from Brene Brown. I don't know if you guys, I don't
Brené
know
Brown.
if
Yeah. I know Brené
you,
Brown.
of
Yeah.
course, you know
And
Brene Brown, but
books.
the
Yeah.
concept of the man in the arena. And for those who don't know what that is, the man in the arena, this is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, where he talks about, I'm not going to be able to recite all of it, but it goes something like, it's not the critic that counts. not the man who's pointing out to how the strong man stumbles. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena. The person
Exactly.
whose face is covered in blood, in sweat, and dust, the person who knows that they will err, that they will fall short again and again, but still they know that at best they will triumph. Or if they fail, they will fail daring greatly. So honestly, for me, if you're not in the arena, if you're not out there getting your kicked, your feedback doesn't count.
Does
Period.
not count. If
Period.
you're not in the arena. And you did say something earlier on. You said, let me fail on my own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I can, you know, honestly tell you that has been my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Let me fail on my own terms. I
Mm-hmm.
will try. Those who know me very well know I'm a risk taker. I've done so
Mm-hmm.
many different things in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm going for something, like I said before, and my stomach churns, then I
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm going for makes sense. I know what I'm going for is big. I
Yeah.
know what I'm going for is audacious. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of me being a woman of color, I would always say to myself, why not me? Why not me? I mean,
Yeah.
so why not me? So what that I'm a woman? So what that I'm a woman of color? Why not me? And for me, I would always step out, except I don't want it. If I want it, I'm going for it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much my stomach churns. If I want it, I am going for it.
Yeah.
And I think imposter syndrome is something we will always have. It doesn't matter how high up we go on our, business trajectory or in our on our career ladder. Every time we want to change levels, we want to go one step higher. I think there will always be that element of, imposter syndrome, but we must have the courage to overcome it, right?
There is that element of fear,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Mm,
because it is
always.
something that, as human beings, we are wired in a way, we are
Hmm.
comfortable, we
Yeah.
like to feel safe. And so
Yeah.
anything that kind of gets us, tears us out of that safety, you always welcome it with fear. Just hold on. I'm saying, I wonder if vulnerability itself
Yes, I
is
was
like
just going to
courage.
come to that.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Absolutely. 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 Because you really, you, it's not easy to tell people that you're struggling with something, or it's not
Hmm.
easy. If you look at it from a leadership perspective,
Yeah.
for a lot of leaders, the hardest thing they can do is to stand and tell their teams or their people that I don't know the next step. Those three words, I don't know, they're the hardest words that a lot of leaders struggle with. So it does take a lot of courage to
It
really
does.
let people in and bear it out. It does,
It does. It
absolutely.
does. And of course, when you say you don't know, it's like you're supposed to know, right? You're the leader. You're the one with all the power. You're the one, showing the direction. You're supposed to know. And but I mean, like we said before, things have changed so much, and that is
Mhm.
why, as a leader, it's also your responsibility to start creating a safe environment, psychological safety, because it also means that you are going to benefit from creating a safe environment. That is what it is. By
Absolutely.
by by taking that lead and creating a safe environment, you are equally benefiting from that safety that you're creating, and it becomes, a collective, a shared understanding of how we want to work, how we
Hmm.
want our spaces to be, and it
Hmm.
becomes easy for people to show up fully and to
Hmm.
speak up if they have to. So
Hmm.
I mean, our workspaces are changing. We
Hmm.
still have a long way to go, that's for sure. We still have a long way to go, but things are changing every day. Stella says, when you step out in the balcony, there's an element of risk and takes courage for some to step out. Yes, it does take courage. Starting Sincerely Agile with Mary was stepping out into the balcony. Um, Today, Natalie coming to the show, that's stepping out into the balcony for her. But we've got to do it.
Of
Somebody
course.
has got to do it, right?
Absolutely.
We,
Absolutely.
we can't all shy away, somebody has got to do it. And the critics will come. They will
Yeah.
come from the east, they will come from the west, north and south. But like you said, if they
Hmm.
are not in the arena, right? If they are
Then
not in the arena, then it doesn't count. Okay?
absolutely.
It does not count. Um, Oluwayemi, I'm in total sync. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With nearly 30 years work experience, I still suffer imposter syndrome in some certain situations. Absolutely, Stella. Like I said before, when we want to change levels, when we are moving on to the next opportunity, to the next, career path or changing career, there will be some degree of imposter syndrome. It is natural. I guess we're human, right? We're human, like you said, Natalie. Because we're human, we will feel that fear because we are moving away from our natural
Comfort.
environment, from our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
We're, moving into unknown territory. We're bound to
Mm-hmm.
have some degree of anxiety. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Because we feel that imposter syndrome, I know you, Stella, we will prepare. We will go that extra mile, just like Natalie prepared for our interview. In as much as she didn't have all the language advantage, we will prepare, we will strategize, we will put on our thinking hat and be creative to overcome whatever challenges come our way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome will always be there, but we can overcome it by preparing, by knowing our onions. It's as simple as that. I mean, as an agilist, I'm constantly improving myself. I mean, next month I'm starting a new leadership program as an expert in the agile space. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
just keep updating and updating ourselves so that when the opportunities come, even though you might feel that is some degree of imposter syndrome, you are ready. Wow, brilliant. Even leaders benefit from. Absolutely, Olufunke. Absolutely. So, as a leader, if you fail to create a safe environment, it will come to
Mm-hmm.
haunt you.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
It will come to haunt you. So the sooner you summon up the courage to start doing things differently, to own up to the fact that this is
Mm-hmm.
21st century and that
Mm-hmm.
this is no longer the industrial age, the better for you as a leader. You must have the courage to, start thinking differently and doing things differently. Let's take Nokia. Let's take Kodak. All these big,
Mm-hmm.
organizations that are now, on the back burners. Why did they fail? They failed because they didn't create a safe environment. They failed because the people on the shop floor, so to speak, who knew the customers better, who knew what the trends were in the industry, couldn't communicate those, that feedback quickly enough into the system. There was no space for them to have that conversation. So it will come to haunt you, Olufunke. It will come to haunt leaders who are not doing that. If they create a safe environment and people can come to work safely and people can contribute, I mean, voices are valued, then they will hear
Mm-hmm.
what they need, what they need to hear, not what they want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will
And
hear what they need to hear.
Mary, you've
Yeah,
really touched on a very solid point right there,
yeah.
because when you look at especially corporate settings, right, they
Mhm.
have these rigid structures that make it quite difficult to be agile. As much as as much as a lot of corporates are talking about agile solutions and
Yeah,
all that, when you really
yeah.
dig deep in there, there's absolutely no agility. So the reality is, it really
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're a large corporate, you're a non-profit, you're running
Yeah.
your own business. You
Mhm.
must have the courage to really listen to the frontline
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
because they are closest to your diverse customers, diverse
Absolutely.
clientele, and all that.
Absolutely.
And they will give you
Absolutely.
the insight that nobody can give you, and use that
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
adapt to your
Mm.
strategies, use that to adapt to your solutions, and at the end of the day, you create a win-win situation for everybody.
Exactly. I mean, some leaders are afraid to divert, to distribute decision making. They are afraid that they will lose power. But what they are failing to see is the fact that the people who are closest to the customers have not been empowered, or that the right channels have not been created for them to get that feedback fast enough. Fantastic, Natalie.
and
Yeah,
and
you're
that's
going to
the
say?
point where a lot of leaders, and
Yeah.
when you get into these conversations with leaders, they will tell you, but of course I delegate tasks, I delegate to my people. I go like, yes, you do. You delegate tasks, but you don't delegate authority.
Authority, that is it.
You have to delegate authority. Just delegating a task is not enough. You've
It's
got to
not.
give them that space to make decisions, to be decisive, to really work without always having to knock on your door and ask, is that all right?
Exactly.
Is that all right? Pretty much
Exactly.
give the what, and let them figure out the how,
Let
and let
them
them
figure
come
out
back
the
to you with
how.
solutions. Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely, because they are the ones on the shop floor and they know what's going on. Now, Natalie, this is your website, Interface
Yes.
Leadership. And I
Yes.
just love the fact that your approaches are so human centered, very agile, very, very agile.
Mhm.
And she's also on LinkedIn. Um, Natalie, she does put out some really good posts out there. She really does.
Yeah.
That was how I connected with her.
Mhm.
She does put out some really good posts out there. So by all means, please link up with Natalie. And she used to run a podcast as well, but since she became a mother, since she became a mother, your daughter is just what, 14 months old, right?
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
14 months, and
14
I think
months.
the last time I put up an episode was like 6 months ago, something like that. So it's been, I still work in a corporate setting. I have my own business, got a baby, I'm
Yeah,
a mom, I'm a wife, and
yeah.
sometimes you spread yourself, you wear too many hats, right? And you may have noticed I've not really put out any content on LinkedIn for the past three
You
weeks or
haven't been
something
as
like that.
active as you used to be.
Yes, I just sometimes you literally need that for your sanity. I
Yeah,
needed that
yeah,
time out,
yeah.
but I'm coming. I'm coming again. I'm
You
coming
know
back, guys.
what? In your
I
own
will be. I'll
time,
be back.
your daughter is priority, that's for sure. And I
Absolutely.
just want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. We're going to call it an evening now because she has to go and take care of her daughter. Just send her a
Bedtime.
connection. There you go. Just send her a connection. So
Hey,
expect
Stella.
that.
Looking forward.
Yes,
Looking
yes,
forward.
yes, yes. So Natalie, thank you so much for making time to join me here today, and to our audience. As always, I cannot thank you enough for showing up for Sincerely Agile with Mary every time. And we'll see you again next Sunday. Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you so much.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having me. It's been a
It's been
pleasure.
a it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for making time. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.